Alex, if I could ask you to invite the bell one time. And Sangha, if you would be willing to connect with each other and with all of us here in this room, with the entire Sangha that represents this community, putting your right hand over your heart, left hand over that. Let us be at peace with our bodies and our minds. Let us return to ourselves and become holy ourselves. Let us be aware of the source of being common to us all and to all living things, evoking the presence of the great compassion. Let us place ourselves in our own compassion for ourselves and for all living beings. And let us pray that we ourselves cease to be the cause of suffering to each other. May we always remember these wonderful words of Thich Nhat Hanh. And if we could invite the bell one more time. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Well, everyone, it is so nice to be back. It's been about 1.5 years since I've had the opportunity to join this Sangha in your services and as a speaker. Bobby sort of said that I was going to talk a little bit about, I think I named it the ruts and pitfalls or potholes in the Zen road of our lives in Buddhism. And that's the intent. You know, this Sangha is very special to me because more years than I can even remember and go back, and I'm not even going to ask Cornell when it was. But before I was a monk, I was looking for community. My teacher, who I'd been studying with for close to 15 years, kept encouraging me to be a member of a Sangha. I was a solitary meditator. I was perfectly happy sitting on my pillow in my bedroom, doing my own meditation singularly, not joining together with others. And then all of a sudden, an opportunity arose where a general announcement of an invitation around Easter time invited people to come and join and hear this young monk called Brother Chi Sing come and speak and share some meditation. And that was the very first time that I felt that connection to Sangha. I understood what my teacher had been talking about, that I was missing an essential part of my own path. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit tonight about these pitfalls or potholes and ruts in the road of our Zen practice. We all have them. We all have them. In 2022, towards the end of it, I was introduced very, very deeply in the Buddha's 5 remembrances. Now, I had been spending 75 years of the first part, which is we are of the nature to grow old, and there is no way to avoid growing old. I was 75 years old. But I really got hit with the second part, which is I am of the nature to be sick, and there's no way to avoid being sick. And I got the wonderful opportunity to trip on a dog bone in my living room and tear both meniscus in my left knee. And regretfully, the meniscus does not heal. It has to be repaired surgically. And so I had that done, and then, all of a sudden, I was diagnosed with severe sleep apnea. I never knew I snored. There wasn't anybody sleeping with me to tell me, and my dog snores, so who knows? But anyway, 47 times an hour, my breathing would stop for 10 seconds or longer. That's called severe. sleep apnea. And along with that came this thing called AFib, or atrial fibrillation. It affects your heart. And rather than your heart beating at the normal pace, my heart was beating almost double that. So rather than 60 some beats a minute, 154 to 180 beats a minute. And it, outside of it being uncomfortable, it also creates an opportunity to get closer to having a stroke. And so I had to go on other medications, which I wasn't used to taking, and to try to get that under control. And then I had 2 melanomas, which had to be surgically removed. And that's always fun. And so this second remembrance of I am of the nature to be sick came right in focus for me. There was no doubt about it. And then, of course, the third one is I am of the nature to die, and there's no way to avoid death. I haven't hit that one yet, but we all know it's going to come for all of us at some point in time. The fourth remembrance is everything I love and everyone I love and care for is also affected by this same impermanence in life. And there's no way to avoid being separated from family and friends and opportunities and experiences as we go through life. And then finally, the fifth remembrance is about our actions and our karma. And there's no way to avoid our karma. What we do as a result, maybe not affecting us immediately, but going out into the world and acting in the world. And there is no way to avoid our karma. And then the final part of that is my actions are my only true belongings. They are the ground on which I stand. So 5 remembrances all came up. And so I've been thinking about this for over a year, about a deeper understanding of this path that we call life. And the Buddha did it too. If you know the story of the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, princely person living the life of Riley, if you will, had the best of everything. That's just the way his family wanted him to live. He was an intelligent man, a very intelligent man. And he snuck out of the castle where he lived, you know, and all of a sudden he saw things that he didn't see in his own hometown. He saw sickness, death, old age. He saw all of those things and questioned, why do we suffer these? And he tried to figure this out on his own. He knew that he wasn't going to get it living where he was living. And so he said, you know, I'm going to sneak away. And he's put up quite a sacrifice to do that. Left a beautiful young wife and his newborn son and headed out into the towns of India, going to the highest Hindu temples where learning was considered one of the highest forms of life. And he was so intelligent that, you know, the headmasters of the school said, oh, you know, we can't teach you anything. Why don't you take over the schools? And the Buddha, or Siddhartha at that time, knew very clearly that this isn't going to do it. This is not going to give me those answers. And so along the way, he saw people that were called mendicants. Mendicants lived out in the outside. They didn't wear a lot of clothes. They didn't protect themselves from the elements. They ate very, very little. The story tells us that the Buddha at some point was only eating a grain of rice a day. And he was almost on the verge of death. You see some figurines of the Buddha where he actually looks like a skeleton. And at that point in time, a young shepherd girl kind of said to him, This doesn't look real smart. This doesn't look like it's the way to do it. You can always trust women to tell us we're not on the right path. And the Buddha heard what he said, and so he began to eat. And he now discovered that having the best of everything, having very, very little of anything, almost unto death, neither of those were the way. And he developed his teachings around what he called the middle way, or the middle path. Now, we all have these paths, and we are all, as we come into the world, we are set upon some sort of way of living that is affected by lots of things. Some of it is affected by our minds. Things we learn, things we experience lead us in a particular path. We're also affected by things outside of our own control, like illness, like sickness, like death in the family, like lots of different things that will affect us. And so this is what I envision as the potholes and ruts of our path in life, this road that we follow, if you will, if you can visualize that. And sometimes we step in the hole or the pothole, or we step in the rut and we get really stuck. Sometimes it's just that bump in the road. You know, you drive in Texas here, so you have no doubt what potholes and ruts are about. I have no doubt. So I'd like to go over some thoughts about things that we can think about that maybe are these potholes and ruts in the road to satisfaction. The first one I'd like to have you think about is believing that life should be a certain way. Anybody do that? Anybody been caught in that rut for a while? You know, maybe our parents set us upon it, maybe our career set us upon it. It's hard to say how sometimes we get in this rut. It's generally a longer process than just that pothole that we kind of fall into all of a sudden. But the concept of fighting against how life really is versus our own thought about how we think it should be can become a struggle for a lot of people. It can be a struggle in relationships. How many relationships are we involved in our life that I can think of a few in my life where, you know, if it wasn't going to be the way I thought it should be, it wasn't going to be. The second one I'd like you to think about is, and this one I think is more a pothole than a rut, comparing ourselves to others. How does that affect our life? Rather than looking at our life with great joy that another wonderful day of living and how I live it is totally up to me and what I choose is totally up to me. And instead I get into this pothole about, but I want it to be like Mary Jane or Johnny. I want it to be like them. And I worked for American Airlines for 33 years. And I went in with the anticipation that I was going to be a vice president someday. And very clearly, I wasn't on the path of corporate vice presidency. I did okay. But I was never going to do that. But I spent a lot of time pursuing things and doing things that maybe I'm not totally thrilled about, because I wanted to be a vice president. That was a pothole that I fell into. How about another one? Being attached to material things. How many of us have been caught up in being attached to material things? You know, that nice new car, that pretty house, the vacations, whatever it is, those glittery things that fall in front of us that again take our focus sometimes away from where we should be focused. And we expend a lot of energy trying to accumulate these things. Sometimes not even doing it in an ethical way. Some people fall into stealing or lying to get what they want. So that's another one of those potholes to avoid. Another one I'd like you to think about is having expectations of people and situations. Boy, that's a pothole for relationship hell. If you've ever been in a relationship where you have great expectations of what the other person is going to do or be, and they just don't ever meet your qualifications, how unhappy does that make you sometimes? How unhappy do you make other people when you don't meet their expectations? And rather than communicating and having open dialogue about how do we get to where, even if we can get to these expectations, instead we choose to be unhappy. And what happens when we're unhappy? Well, we could have a tendency to try to make the other person a little unhappy, a little miserable. I can see that happening a couple of times in my life. Another one, overthinking. Do we have any overthinkers here? Yes. Yes. Spending so much energy and time going this way and that way. Should it be this? Should it be that? Oh, I don't know. Let me look on Google. Oh, Google's no good. Let me check TikTok or wherever you go to find your information. And before you know it, sometimes the opportunity that was right there in front of you to be kind, compassionate, to choose the right thing for you or for somebody else slips by because we're going to overanalyze it. What is that called? Analysis paralysis? Yeah. Anybody ever experienced that in your life? Yeah, me too. Another one, forcing things to happen. That's generally a pothole. You know, well, if I just do this, maybe it will produce that. Again, rather than looking at things like, should this be something that I'm pursuing? I don't know. I don't know. You know, there's some of the Noble Eightfold Path falls right into this, like livelihood. I use the word wise livelihood. Many times you'll hear it called right livelihood. There's times when we have a real struggle about, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Or is this something that I feel ethically okay to be doing? But I'll do what I have to do and force it, which really will never make you happy. Here's one that, boy, this one I look at as a rut because it seems to carry its way a long, long time. Sweating the small stuff. Do you ever get up in the morning and you already know after you've stepped out of bed and maybe your cat or your puppy is puked on the floor and your foot finds it before you're able to clean it up? And you go to make a cup of coffee and you drop it and it spills all over the place and you got a mess. And then all of a sudden you go in to check your laundry and oh my gosh, the washing machine is leaking. This can help us into a path of unhappiness, because that's where our mind goes. That's what follows. That's why we're encouraged in our practice to start each day with gratitude. It's, what am I grateful for today? I woke up. Great gratitude for that. I've got food in the refrigerator. I've got friends that love me. My health is not that bad. And if I can use all of those thoughts to direct my day, then I have a different ending as I go through that day, rather than just being affected by all the negativity that could be affecting my day. And of course, that leads us to focusing on what's wrong versus what's right. Some of you know, those of you that know me know I'm a political junkie. And I've since recognized that's not healthy for me. So I now I have to turn off the TV because I can't listen to it anymore. I turn it on. Oh, it still works. It seems like we're still a country. Okay, switch it off. Rather than listening to it over and over and analyzed over and over and over again, which leads me to being unhappy. Leads me to think things about certain people that I don't really want to have those kind of thoughts. I'm much better off just simply saying, I don't agree, but I guess they're doing the best that they can do with what they got. And move on with my own life, my own practice of mindfulness going throughout my day. The next one is a big one that we fall into. Not we all, but some people, we may all know people like this, that try to fill the emptiness with addictive things. Alcohol, drugs, sex, food, all kinds of different things that suck us in and hold on to us tightly, that we're now a servant of that addiction. If you know anybody, you know how painful that can be, not only for the people that are addicted, but for the people that love them and care about them. It's really hard. I'm going to be starting Recovery Dharma at my temple in Arlington next month. Recovery Dharma is like AA, but it's according to the principles of the Buddha. And I like it because I don't have to do anything. I just can open the door and everybody comes in and shares. And then I close the door when everybody leaves. Easy work for me. So those filling of our emptiness with addictive things are very difficult. And we must all consider our opportunities to be compassionate, to be understanding in the ways of addiction and how people react to it. And finally, the last one I have, I've experienced this one in my life, making everything about you. You think, you might be sitting there going, oh, I don't do that. Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. And the interesting thing is, when we fall into these potholes or ruts, these other things, they can lead us to drawing our thoughts and our actions towards ourselves more than offering them out to people that need them. Because we're unhappy. That's where our focus is. Let our focus be a compassionate focus out in the world. I'm not trying to tell you that life is one great smooth highway all the time. It's not. Things are going to happen in all of our lives that we're going to have to deal with. It's how we deal with them that will determine the level of happiness or unhappiness that we have in our life. You know, I can wake up in the morning and I can curse this damn knee that won't let me sit on the floor any longer because it takes me forever to get up off the floor. I can sit there, but can't get up very easily. That's why I like Zoom calls, because after the Zoom call, nobody's watching and I can get up off the floor looking like, yeah, for sure. So that's 10 things to think about. Think about potholes and think about ruts. It's always a good thing to do a little bit of analysis. I don't know whether you do it. I'm a recovering Catholic, okay, 62 years of the Catholic Church. So I was trained as a young person, when you go to bed at night, you think about all the awful things that you did throughout the day. It's taking note, because you're going to have to go off to a box and tell somebody about it. And hopefully make decisions about not wanting to do those things again. I don't think that's a bad practice. Before your eyes close, just before your head hits the pillow, allow yourself to go through your day and say, what was this day like for me? What were the ruts and the potholes that I experienced, and how did I deal with them? Did I get stuck in any of them? Am I still stuck in any of them? Great opportunity to do an accounting of your day. That's called mindful living. Mindful living. That somewhere somebody tells me that the Buddha once said, no one is more deserving of your love than you. I still can't find it. I don't know where it is. But I would think that if anybody was going to say it, the Buddha probably intimated it somewhere along the line. And I believe that's true. Love yourself. That may sound selfish, but it's not. Through your own self-love, through your own recognition of who you are, you can find the true gift that you are in this world. And it's like a jewel, and you polish it and it becomes even more beautiful because you work on it. So allow yourself that opportunity. Don't worry about the 5 remembrances. They're going to happen whether you want them to happen or not. But be grateful for this wonderful gift of life. Thank you. Anybody have questions or